Hey everybody, as promised, I've got my new Sony A7II inside of the Frugal Cage, and this is a video about what I've done to get it there. And as I go through these things, you might notice a lot of familiar objects because I really haven't changed all that much. And I made a lot of videos about all this different stuff, so you can check the playlist in the description below or at the YouTube card that'll pop out here. And we'll go over all this stuff in detail, but I just wanted to kind of go over quickly how I did this and what I did differently and what works and what doesn't. But we'll go ahead and start with the focus gear right here. This is very familiar if you saw my cheap follow focus video. I'm using the newer CN90F follow focus, an inexpensive follow focus, but I've got it connected to this very large gear here because my lenses that I use, my Minolta vintage lenses, have a very narrow diameter, and so I need a large gear to get it to this gear so I can control it, as well as using the silicone band which goes around here to not only create a buffer in between the lens and the gear, but it's also used to mark the lens. So when I have a bag of lenses, I can just look at the color of the band and know what focal length they are because they all kind of look alike. My 28 millimeter, my 35 millimeter, which is this one, and my 50 millimeter all look very similar, but they have different colored bands on them, so I can tell them apart really easily. Or the AC can tell them apart, so I can just say, you know, get me the yellow lens for 28, the green for 35, and the red for 50. Hopefully in the future I'll add an 85 to that, and that'll be the blue lens. You get the idea. Anyway, this all fits together well. You know, this is mounted on flash brackets. There are no rails in this system. It's all flash brackets. I can add everything onto it. I don't have to add anything extra typically to get everything to fit. It's all kind of encompassed in the Frugal Cage system, which you can check out more of in the description below or in the playlist that will pop up on screen. If I go this way, you'll see my external battery system here. These are two Sony NPF970 batteries that I've mounted externally that go right into my camera here and also to the monitor. So one of these batteries is powering the camera and the other battery is powering the monitor, which will last quite a long time. I'm not sure with this camera how long they'll last. My other camera, they would last all day. I'm guessing at least half or 2/3 of the day will be powered by one of these batteries. One of the complaints about the A7 series was that it was powered by these little tiny batteries and these would disappear power-wise really quickly. So these external batteries, you can see just size-wise, they're going to last a lot longer. Now to do that, I'm actually running a dummy battery inside of my battery bay right here, which is giving power from this battery into the camera. One thing I learned when I did this was that the battery originally in the NEX camera that I had, the battery was oriented in the other direction, not upside down, but just I'd have to rotate it around so that the contacts were on a different side. And all that meant was that the cord coming out of the camera here on the bottom would normally fit the little trap door that allows for a cable to run out of the battery bay because they anticipate this type of thing, is now coming out of the front of the camera instead of the back of the camera, which just means that I have to leave my battery bay door open if I want to be able to do this, which is unfortunate. I'd have to buy a new dummy battery to get this to work normally, where I could just shut the door, which I plan on doing in the future because if dust is blowing or anything, I really don't want it blowing inside of my battery bay. So I did have to adjust for that. That's something a little bit different. But this system is still there and it works well. And these batteries are a lot easier to change than having to drop batteries out of this bay. Even though I've allowed for that with the Frugal Cage system because the camera is actually raised up, so I can drop the battery out easily. Going this way, you'll see my external monitor right here. This is the $56 monitor that I got a long time ago that I adapted. It's supposed to be an in-car monitor for entertainment systems inside of vehicles, and I've adapted it to use on my camera system here. You'll notice here that I've got my external monitor and my camera monitor both running at the same time. That's a really nice feature of the A7II, and I think the whole A7 series, is that you can have a DP monitor here that the DP is looking at, as well as the viewfinder, which is active here. If I go to put my eye on it, that'll black out. But you can also have an external monitor that the director or the producer can look at, so they all don't have to be crowded around the camera with you if you're the DP. They can be separate. I can actually move this off on a stand and use an extension, HDMI extension cable, and just run it way off camera, so we're not butting heads. However, one thing I did notice was that if I want to put all the camera information on this bigger monitor so I can use it, it'll actually shrink the screen. It won't be true 16:9. I'll get pillar boxes on the side here. And so I have to flick a setting, which I had to look up on Google actually to figure out how to do this because I was frustrated I wasn't filling the entire external monitor screen. One thing I did have to change to get the monitor to work properly was get the proper cable because this has a micro HDMI, not a mini HDMI. So I had to get an adapter here. Fortunately, this whole cable system, as you may have noticed from my previous video about the monitor, is modular, meaning that Both sides of these cables can be replaced with something else because I've got a male-to-male coupler here in the middle. So all I did was get a $2.50 cable here that had micro HDMI on one side and standard HDMI on the other, and then it fit right into the coupler. So I didn't have to buy a new cable. I just had to find this special section here and replace it. The other thing you might notice here is this Saramonic SR-AX107. This is kind of their flagship audio adapter. It's got two XLR inputs right here, and it's powered by a 9-volt battery. This is something I'm going to be reviewing in the future, but I'm taking it on a shoot this weekend, so I wanted to see how well it fit onto the Frugal Cage. It actually fits rather well. It fits great. It's meant to go on underneath a camera. That's why it's so large on the bottom here, but it fits great on this flash bracket with this knob right here. It just screws right to the flash bracket. It's got such a long, squishy pad that would normally just go right up against the bottom of a camera. It just attaches great right here, and it's not going to move. It's really firm. So look for this review in the future, but as you can see, I'm just kind of decking this whole thing out to give you an idea what the Frugal Cage can do with this new setup. And that's it. It works really well. The only thing I really don't like about this setup, the only thing I can really complain about so far, is that I can't get to my SD card right here. I can open up the SD battery door right here, but as you can see, it doesn't open up enough for me to retrieve the card and replace it. So I kind of have to just anticipate that either get a large enough card where I can shoot all day and not take it out until I actually take the whole system apart, or I have to adjust something to allow me to get to that battery door open further, and so far I haven't been able to do that with my current setup because I'm using this spacer here, as you can see, to space the camera away from the Frugal Cage itself, because I wasn't able to slap it up against the side of the cage like I did with the NEX5N, so I had to create a spacer here to keep it far enough away where the camera would actually not bend or flex, or it would just work better. That's the solution that I came up with. But as a result, I'm not able to get the card out, so that is the downside. But everything else, as you can see, I think actually works pretty well. I've got my top handle here. I've got room to actually add something else there if I need it. But this is pretty much as far as I think I would normally go with a setup like this. But I think it works pretty well. I think the A7 II fits in well into this system, and I think I'm happy with it. Again, I'm going on a shoot this weekend, so I'll know for sure. But I like how it's fitting in here. I like how it's working out. And if you have any questions about any of the stuff that you've seen in this video, you can always check the description below or check the playlist, or you can just leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer the question there. So I hope you like this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please come to thefrugalfilmmaker.com, and thanks for watching.